Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. So we're back again with another Tower of God video, and this time we go from 121 to 130. And we're now at the start of the Helltrain arc, with one of the most important pieces being the station arc right now. So we get the first station, and this one, I believe takes about 20 episodes. We even get the whole fight with the Meriodic Guardian. We get the whole craziness with Uraha and Balm, and most of it is very repetitive in terms of action. So this may be one of the shorter videos, so please bear with that. That is going to make a big difference. So we see that it starts off with the message from Warrior to Balm, and her message is that he needs to be prepared to lose members on this section of the climb, because when it comes to this section, he's not going to have such an easy time. He's definitely going to lose friends, and he needs to be prepared for it. And the more people he tries to protect, the more chances are he's going to get his heart broken. And it's exactly what happens in this arc, by the way. Then we see that the regulars arrive at the residence, and we see that the residence is totally packed. And we see that there's multiple individuals standing outside each door trying to steal a door or to submit to whoever enters into the door. And we see that the doors to each of the residents can only be opened by your express train tickets, so that's how you enter. Alright, so we get that there, and we see that Balm has to go to room 52. Now understand, just the fact that they're saying 52 means they're in the top 50% of individuals in this entire section for the train. So room 52 is where Huariyun and Raka, so that's how crazy powerful they are already. Right, and we don't even know how low Balm's ticket number is. We never ever get to see it. We do get to see Uraha showing that she has a very low number on hers. And then we see him heading towards his room. And we see that a whole lot of regulars turn on him, and that is where things end. We then get a flashback to Ran against the Meriodic Guardian. And we see that Beta wants to also join in, and we see that the fight is going a bit crazy, and that even Ran can't stand up to him properly. We then see that he keeps fighting, and we then swap back to Balm. Balm wipes out that entire group of regulars who tries to invade them as they go to the room. And we see that he knocked out 5 E-rank regulars in an instant, and they figure that he is extremely strong. And we see Boro explain that he is extremely strong, and we see that they keep walking. And then we see Rak come out of the room in his decompressed form, so he's huge. And Warrior is by his side. Then we get a quick hint back to Fug, and we see Angel and the rest of their team. That's Rachel and Casino Traveler. So yeah, that team has arrived, and that is where this section ends. Now Apple and Michael are not with them. They actually join back with them after the train, and that's the way that they intended to do it. So we'll move on to episode 122. We see everybody from the Fug team jump off, and we see that Angel is hungry, and we see that words are being exchanged. Now, one of the individuals who's part of the team at this point is one of Yama's mad dogs. Now, we knew that there were 3 mad dogs in the whole situation going up the tower. We knew there was Varagrav. This is the second one of the mad dogs. So then we say that they decide they going up to a certain level for their own purposes. At this point, we see that it switches back to Ran's fight with the Meteoric Guardian, and we then see that Ran is using one of his spears, which means he's really at full power. He's going for something crazy, and we see that he's been training really hard so that he could never be beaten like he was in the workshop battle. So he's been really going crazy, and he fires off this crazy spear, at which point it hits the Guardian and it doesn't have any effect, and the Guardian fires off 2 shots at them, at which point Daniel jumps in front and he takes it in with his power. And we see that he says that they are promising rookies, and then we see that it switches over to Huariyun. Now you have to understand that switching over to Baum's team, Huariyun's team, things are going to be a little bit more intense. We then see that Huariyun speaks to Boro. Then we see that she explains that there's something about to start now, and we see that the game starts off, and that is the end to 122. We then move on to episode 123. So we see that they decide to eliminate all the regulars in that area so that only 7 of them remain, and that's just their way of hosting a silly little game. Now obviously with that large of a number, if you want to be reduced to just 7 people, there's very few ways to do it, and they've already decided on their way. We see that the members of AKA Williams' team are looking at everything. And then we see that the member of AKA's team was actually eyeing Baum, and Baum was actually way more dangerous than he looks. And then we see Uraha enter, and we see the swordsman with one of the ignition weapons was busy fighting, and just about all of the fighting is almost done. Then we see that at that point we see that Huariyun explains that Fug really wants something from the train, and the back and forth is getting a little bit heavy, so to explain that it's going back and forth is going to be very important as well. We then see that they have some goals and they intend to find something that was left on the train. And we see that Huariyun explains she's a guide, and if they want to get off the train safely, they're going to have to cooperate. And we see that there's a D rank regular who is cooperating with Fug. Now all of the regulars at this level are D rank, right? It's something for you to know. Once you pass level 30, you become D rank, so 31 upwards, and this is in the 35th floor, so everybody here is D rank. So they've just leveled up from E rank, so it makes them quite dangerous. And we see that Uraha is part of that group of individuals. We see that she gathers up everybody and she takes them as her teammates. We then switch over to Ran's team again, and they wonder who in the world the crazy guy who jumped in front was. And we see that he introduces himself as Daniel Hatchet. So we see that he explains that the Guardians are an illusion and that you can't beat them. They're just there to guard the entrance, and they'll disappear when the entrance opens. And we see that is where episode 123 ends, and we go on to episode 124. Now, there's a lot of important things which go on from this point. We see that Daniel explains he'll be taking part in the tournament, and we know that certain things are part of the regulations for this train, and they will be happening every year. Like, whatever this event is happens every year, and then they lead up to the boarding of the train, and all of this happens in sequence. We see that they wonder why Yuraha is here. She should be preparing for a tournament. That's because we now swapped over to Yuraha and Balm's team at the same time. So yeah, you should know that they interchanging. And we see that Yuraha quit being an idol. We then see that she convinces a whole lot of them to join her team, and she shows them her ticket. And we see that she has 2 tickets. And that she's willing to split up who can enter the room with her. And we see that they mention that she's similar to A.K. Williams. Now, A.K. Williams and her are most probably part of something called the Cursed People. The Cursed People are 3 different curses. One of sterility, where the children die at birth, so few and few are born who can actually survive. The second is misgendered individuals, so they don't have a male or female, so they can't reproduce. And the third are those who had their powers locked away from them, so they don't have their full potential. So those are the 3 peoples who form part of the Cursed People. We believe that it's Yuraha as one side, aka Williams is another, and Rock is another. That's just the way the community believed it. I think it was important to mention. We then see that Boro explains that this isn't a good thing, that Yuraha managed to convince them. It actually means they have more enemies to fight, and there's no friends on the train. We then see Balm walk away, and Boro considers him to be very unfriendly. And we see Rock say he wasn't always like that, and they wonder what's going through his mind, and everybody is looking at it and they're wondering. And we see that Boro met Fug on the Hell train before. We then see Daniel explains a little bit about how powerful he is compared to Ran's team, and it's all basically more of a boast than anything else. We then see that Daniel is so fast that Ran can't even keep up with his speed. And that is the end of that whole situation, because they leave and they say they'll meet them at the stadium the next day. So then we transfer back to Balm's team. And as I said, there's a lot of back and forth. It's going to be quite fast compared to normal, hopefully. And we see that she's giving him that lecture that we spoke about earlier, that he's going to have to be prepared to lose teammates. And we see that Waryun explained to him that only if he gets much stronger will he be able to beat Rachel. We then see that he's been working on his martial arts by going to different martial arts dojos and taking in all of their skills, because that's one of his powers, and that is where 124 ends. We go on to 125. We see that they announced the tournament will happen at 2 p.m. And we see that they spoke about what happened on the Hell train before. And we see that a Slayer nominee once boarded the train before this, and this is where things get crazy. Okay, so we see that a whole lot of information is disclosed by Borrow about the fact that if Fug is getting involved, things are going to get really dangerous. Remember, Borrow was part of the team who actually sealed Aquan or White away in the train, so they really took on a Slayer. It wasn't a Slayer nominee, and that's what makes things difficult. We see that Kun is running late and that Bam decides to start heading in. We see that when White was on the train, he killed just about everybody until there were very few left. In the end, only 5 of them were left from the regulars who were on the train. And basically, the Slayer on the train said that he will return one day in Revolution Road, which is also what the train is called. Then we see that Rachel is up to something in here, and Bam is trying to figure out what is she up to on the Hell train. And we see that Rachel has been manipulating the system on the phone through Emily. She's the one who's passing all the messages, and that she's setting up this weird trap that they have. We see at 1 p.m. That people were blocking the elevator to stop people from entering the tournament. It's a very good strategy to ensure that you qualify. And after that day, we see that Ran's team actually goes through them, while Bam's team is already on the move. So they started way earlier. They got in place ahead of time. They started eating and started preparing for what they're going to do. We then see that Ran takes care of whoever is blocking the elevator, and he jumps in. We then see Bam's team enter the stadium. We then see the way the tournament is set up in this place. We see it's Bam vs Yura in the first round, Team C vs Team Barrow, Team AKA vs Team Ran, and Royal vs Team H. Now, what you need to understand is Barrow's team is one of the teams that show up in the later parts of the Hell Train. They actually become a permanent part of Bam's team. They're actually a very important set of individuals in the end, because they basically become Wagnan's friends, and that is how they relate to the main part of it. And this is actually more or less what Bam looks like at this point. So we then get the image of Rachel's team in the entrance instead of at the tournament area, and that is where 125 ends. So we're going to go on to episode 126. So we see that the tournament is set up and that Yura and Bam are going at each other in the first match, and we see that Borrow doesn't like it because she's from the Ha family and they're definitely going to be dangerous. Then we see that AKA Williams is going to fight Ran's team, and it is quite a difficult situation, and I'll explain it later. We then see that Ran's team also looks at the list, and they realize that they're going to be there and they might even want to fight them. We then see that Yura Ha was responsible for blocking the entrances. Had anybody tried to look through to what she was going to do, they most probably would have went to the lower levels and wiped out all the regulars who were blocking all the entrances, but that would have been another crazy thing. Then we see Ran and them discussing some small things. They aren't really big issues, And we see that the first tournament is decided that it's one ticket per one contestant, and depending on the number of tickets you have, that's the number of players you'll have on the field. So we see that Balm's team has a full 5-man team, while Yuraha's team can only put 2 players up. We then see that they're in a waiting room and they're deciding who the dangerous team was, and Team X seems very dangerous because they didn't give a name, and all of that happens, and then we see the match starts. We then see Yura going up to the front and Balm going up, at which point we see that she calls Balm Jovial Grace. And we see that the game they're going to play is actually called the Crazy Yellow Ball. It's an adjusted form of rugby, so you get to run with the ball in a forward motion, only being able to pass backwards, and you have to beat the line of your defense on the opposing side to score a point. And that's how they're playing this game. That is the whole idea behind it. So we'll see that 126 ends there, and we're off to episode 127. We then see that Yura and Balm are going to have some heated stories. The game is explained here in the start. We see that there's various levels, and then you hit the goal at the end once you go all the way across. We see that Balm has been thrown up by the way he was called out. We then see Ran basically approach Huariyun. We see that everything is set up and that they have 2 goalkeepers and 2 people on the front line basically for the attack, and we see how the game works. We then see Balm gets past the regular on their team, and that's how he gets his first point. And we see that they realize that he has reverse flow control. We see that they all thinking about it, and basically they say bravo. We then see that she throws up Balm even more when she says that Rachel told her about Balm. We see a back and forth between Yuraha and Rachel, and Rachel basically explains has a few things to explain, and that is where episode 127 ends. 128 is going to be a back and forth through this entire game. So we see Ran is watching the game. We then see that Dan finds A.K. Williams in that team, and he realizes that this individual is huge. Now, before we finish off this, I think it's easier to explain this one in between. A.K. Williams is called a collector on the train. Collects individuals to make a powerful team and climb up the tower with them. Beyond that, there, aka Williams is a huge size guy, and the team is really, really high class. They completed the Hell Train before. So, unlike any other regulars on this team, they basically all the way up to floor 43 level in terms of power. So, they are quite powerful individuals. And when you consider that as part of the way things are moving for these regulars in this section, you have to understand that they're really dangerous. And beyond this year, those who are part of the team will have crazy abilities. One of them even has the ability to use reverse flow control, which is super rare, since even Balm using it makes it unbelievably rare, and others who use it at this level would be here for hundreds of years, which is what AK Williams' team has done. They've stayed at this level for hundreds of years. They're way more powerful than this. Originally, AK Williams' team is Boro, Sachi Faker, herself, Ruina, and Daniel. Those are the 5 who made up that team. They were super powerful regulars in their day when they first went on, and it's been hundreds of years since they first boarded the train, possibly even thousands. Beyond Sachi is Kesa at the Name Hunt Station, who is also another powerful individual, and beyond her are the twins from the Lopobia family, Lila and Sheila. So yeah, that is how it goes. We then see the game with Balm, and the rest of his team is getting a bit crazy. We see that Team Barrow is watching this fight, and a lot of the other teams are also watching it. And we see that Balm has a real weird look on his face. We see that Yuraha explains how she met Rachel and that she used Emily to do it. And we see that there's a whole plot erupting. I'm not going to go through it because this is quite a waste of time. Then we see that she pushes up the whole idea of a wager to give one of their tickets over if she can win her advance, and basically something that's at a disadvantage to the team. We then see that Yura decides to start moving, and she runs straight through, and they think there's no plan behind it. And Balm tries to use reverse flow control on her, and as he's trying to grab the ball, she just swipes it right past him, and she managed to stop the reverse flow control. Now there is a reason why she managed to do it, because of her crazy bag. Now you should understand that the level of these individuals are amongst the top that you will see. Balm later develops into the level of the D rank regulars, top levels, within about halfway of the Hell Train, but in reality he should be well above all of them. He should be ranker level trouble. So yeah, that's just how crazy this is. So we see that everybody starts bragging, and at that point Yuraha throws the crazy yellow ball to kill one of her teammates because they blabbed a little bit too much. And we see that the bet continues again, and everybody's telling Balm not to take it. It's a trap. And it is a trap, and Balm is falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. And that is where episode 128 ends. We'll move on to episode 129. So episode 129, Balm takes part in the bet again. They go through the whole same tedious sequence. I'm not going to go through all of the stories on the side of it. It's actually quite a overdone situation, but it was necessary for us to understand. The team gets bigger and bigger on Yuraha's side, and Balm keeps losing. At this point, Balm manages to make it through to the other side using his ability, and they then see the number of bang that he can control. And we see that he uses 3 bang to get through. Now understand that he can use up to 5. Using 3 makes him part of a very elite number in the tower as it stands, but using 5 makes him even more elite. And we then see that Balm tries to get past Yuraha, and she manages to grab the ball from him. And we see that Yuraha explains that she didn't expect Balm to be this dangerously deviant in his schemes. She expected that only Famkun was supposed to be part of his team. We see that Rachel is trying to run away from Balm. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and we can understand her wanting to run away from him, but there's more to it, and we then get to the next one where the whole situation is reversed. And we see this time that Yuraha decides to also go for a draw, actually go for a win, and throws the ball over to one of Balm's teammates as he turns into the crazy mode, which burns the stewardess's hands. Then we see that Balm is really angry, and we see that they treat her for the burns that she has. We then see the team start screaming at Balm that he should stop taking the bet because he's actually causing things to get worse. We then see that Balm goes at this here again with the crazy yellow ball, and this time he goes straight for Yuraha, and he has a crazy way to get past her. He uses the crazy yellow ball to blow her case away because he realizes that it's a lighthouse. And we see that he makes his advance, and he asks her where's Rachel because now she has to give up the info and all of her tickets. And that ends episode 129. We then get to episode 130. Now we see that Balm demands the information, and this is where the trap is triggered because there's a massive trap being held here. We see that Wari Yun actually criticizes Balm because he used the Thorn's power to actually get past her, and he shouldn't have needed to use it against the regulars. He's actually way more powerful than that, and he couldn't use his head properly in that situation, and he just went for brute force to get through it. We then see Ran goes and picks a fight with aka Williams' team, and he ends up facing against one of their members. Barrow's team is wondering about Balm and his strategy and what's going on, and then we see that Balm is demanding his information from Rachel. We then see that she intends to separate Balm from Rachel because they actually set up a trap, and we then get the whole aka Williams Ran's team fight. Ran faces against their wave controller, and we see that he's quite powerful. He can also use reverse flow control. And we see that Ran gets hit really crazy by this individual. And then we see that it swaps over to Rachel's team, where they basically going to pass Meriodic, and that is where episode 30 ends. Now, there is a little bit to explain about why I'm reading over it so quickly. In reality, this whole episode is more or less that interchange between this whole section is a little bit of an explanation of what happens in Train City. We get Waryun explaining that Fug has interest in something on the train. We find out that there was a Slayer nominee on the train before this year, so we know that Balm isn't the only Slayer nominee from Fug. There are other individuals, and all of this is highlighted as part of what's going down within this year. So we have the idea that whoever it is Slayer nominee level. So that could be one of the Mad Dogs of Yama, right? Because they were supposedly Slayer nominees. We know that there's a possibility that it's another individual from somewhere in the tower who has some real crazy power or abilities. We get that hint from how they explain the Slayer nominees, and that is all that we actually do know about it. We didn't know that it is white, right? At this point here, we don't know enough, but Fug knows enough that when Jin Sang Ha gets involved, we get that info. So for now, this is all that we're going to have for this section, and in the next section, I hopefully will be able to give you more. So see you all then, and have a good day.